I uncovered something extremely powerful today. And I've been on this journey for about 3 years now, a little bit more, awakening from being fully in the identified state, which was complete dissociation. I realized, right, when you come out of something, then you realize, okay, what I'm coming out of, this was a dissociation state. This was like the utter, like, dissociation that I was in maybe all my life for as long as I can remember. I discovered something extremely powerful today about my people pleasing identity, which really was the root of, I think, the majority of that dissociated state. And what I discovered today, and I actually confirmed it today because I've had this realization, and several times probably in the last few years, but not like I had it today. And the realization that I had today was that we believe in the lies about ourselves, right? That's the ego identity. That's the trauma personality. That's the childhood personality that had to be somebody in order to survive, right? In a very particular way. And so they became that personality. We became that personality. And I'll give you the example that like allowed me to really dawn on this. And because I've known for some time that, okay, it's my ego identity, right? Which is a very strong, like, people pleaser, right? What's been filling this head over, I mean, gosh, for decades now, really are the thoughts and opinions of other people. But I had an experience yesterday and today that brought so much clarity, and I'll get to it because I don't want to forget. So yesterday, my brother, who I've had a difficult relationship with since I've come back home, and I've, been awakening, so I've changed a lot. And I think there's a lot of fear on my part about how I am, right? The way that I am, and I'm different, right? Or just the way that I am in general, right? Because I'm a very strong people pleaser, right? There's just a lot of fear about the way that I am. And so in interacting with him, that fear comes out, right? Like that fear is experienced in my body, right? And then there's a whole storyline that goes into his behavior, my behavior, and all that, right? So it's very common for people pleasing to experience like a narrative, a story about, your own behavior and somebody else's behavior, like an entire storyline. So yesterday, the interaction with him was actually better than it had been recently, or as, maybe the whole time I've been home, maybe, right? But I had such a profound realization because I had asked him, he dropped me off like earlier in the day to the library. And then in that short ride, he saw me, like I had just been walking, to the library, and he saw me, and he well, I was like halfway there or something, and then he like drove me the rest of the way. And in the car, he told me that he was going to give his blood, or get his blood. Yeah, he was gonna get his blood work done. So he was gonna give his blood. And then later on at night, when I saw him, right, he was sitting at the dinner table, and he had just eaten. And so, like, for the first time, he asked, like, how was your day? And I was like, oh, it's like, it was good. It was long or whatever. And I was like, how was yours? Did you get your blood done? And he and then, or I said, did you give your blood? And then he was like, that's when I asked him, like, in clarification in that conversation, oh, did you give your blood, or like, did you donate your blood, or did you get your blood work done? And he confirmed that it was his blood work that was done. But so fascinating, because today I'm walking to the library, right where I am right now, and there's a sign on the door that says blood drive. Thursday, September 18th, right, which is, or actually the date that I saw it, the date that I imagined, it said Thursday, but it's really like a month from now, right? The date that I imagined in my head was yesterday, because yesterday, and the day that I'm recording this, today is Friday, yesterday was Thursday, so I imagined that it had taken place yesterday. And this is how powerful the mind is. Right, so just keep listening to the story. So I imagined it was yesterday, and then the next, like literally the next thought, like a split second after, right, like literally like it just, like the very next thought, like just almost together, right, is thinking, it, like, that's where my brother went, like my brother went yesterday, that, like, he like, did my brother come to the library yesterday? Because he gave his blood. And if you're following this, situation, right? If you're following the conversation that I just had with him yesterday night, right after he had dinner, was that I clarified, and I was present, right, when I clarified with him that he had in fact got his blood work done. He didn't donate it, but I just came to the library a few minutes ago, and I'm walking through the door, like literally just before I walk in the door, on the sliding door, there's a sign that says blood drive 1 p.m. or something, Thursday, but it's a month and ahead, right? I imagine that the date that I'm seeing, I just imagine that it's yesterday, Thursday. And literally, like, it's like the next thought is like, this is where my brother came yesterday to give his blood. And what I drew from this experience that I just had was the profound connection between fear, right, and even people pleasing, right, but it could just be fear, right, and ADHD, right? Because what I realized, or ADD, right, or struggle, like any kind of dissociation, or even struggle, like intense struggle paying attention, right, where you're not present, you're not here, right, you're not actually in your body. And I drew this really powerful realization because I realized, actually on the way to the library as I was walking here, I constantly was like, my ego identity was arising, right? But there's so much clarity now, right? There's like so much space and emptiness, but it will arise and it will like dissolve, and then like the rest of the moment is, is just emptiness, is just presence. But on my way here, as it was arising, like I was looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so, like, it was like something that with my mom, that had happened in another situation. So hopefully I can get to that. But it was like, I kept confirming as I was walking here, I was like, oh my gosh, we believe in the lie. We believe in the lies about ourselves. And it's almost like, that's why our self-worth is so buried. Our brilliance is so buried, like our inherent worth, our truth, right? It's like the truth of what we are in each moment, what we do, who we are, what we say, how we, like what we're doing and saying, how we're behaving in each moment. We need a justification for that, and the lie is the justification for that, right? The lie that we believe, it could be the justification for that, like the reasoning for that. Or if you have a people pleaser identity like me, it could be the exact opinion and story that somebody else believes about you, even when you know it's not true. Like, that is insane. That is so insane. That is so insane to like imagine, okay, here's my truth, and I believe the lie about myself because this is how I was conditioned. I was conditioned, right? In order for me to survive as a 4-year-old girl, right? I had to, please and get the validation and approval of my mother. And very, very extreme situation, right? Maybe she was so severed from her truth. There was significant trauma there. So I had to believe in like the lies about my position, about my positioning, right? So like if I did something, right, I would have to believe, right? And I knew, like, not even knew, but like that thing that I did was just the truth in me, right? What my mind still has the habit of doing, what's programmed here, is that it will latch on to the opinions and storylines of other people, right, that are either for or against it, and it will play those here, right, out of pleasure, right, and then I'll experience pleasure if it's for it, right, or against it, and I'll experience the suffering. Let me tell you really quick about the situation that happened with my mom, because yesterday night I ate out, and I brought the food home, and it just really gave me a lot of stomach issues. And so I put it in the fridge yesterday night, and then today when I saw my mom, I took it out. I was like, hey, you could eat this for lunch. I was like, yeah, I can't eat it. It's I have too many, it messed up my stomach or whatever. And so a few minutes later, she says to me, she goes, you should try and eat like regular food. She goes, you don't eat this stuff, and that's why you have like so many stomach issues. And right away, like I said to her, I was like, no, it's actually quite the opposite, because in the last year that I've been home, I've actually been eating more and more of stuff that I'm not supposed to eat. And so it's been messing up the gut bacteria in my stomach, and that's why, like, I can handle and tolerate it less and less, right? And so, and I told her, I was like, you know, when I was in Florida, that's where I was, like, right before I came home last year. I was like, when I was in Florida, I would eat this stuff once a month, and I'd, you know, it'd be okay, you know, and I know that I'm not supposed to eat it, but I eat it anyway, right? So, like, you know, and so it wasn't from a place of pleasing, right? That wasn't the energy there. But literally, you know, I go back to my bedroom a few minutes later, right? I start dressing and dressing for the gym. And I notice the storyline here is playing what she said about my stomach issues, how I should, you know, I don't eat this stuff, right? And that's why, like, you know, I'm not used to it or whatever. And very clearly, like, when I see that, I'm like, oh my, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I know that's not true. I know that's not true, because I very well know that I have, you know, a permeability issue in my intestinal lining, right? I very well know I have leaky gut and a bunch of stomach issues, and I very well know that this, you know, that I very well know that I shouldn't be eating this stuff, and it's not what she said. But there's a fight here. There's an energy here that is conditioned to believe, like, literally adopt the opinions and perspectives of other people. And even when I speak about this, right, the energy tries to rear its head, right? But I see it, and it's like it dumbs down right away, like it goes away right away. But it's so fascinating, right? Like, this energy is in the way of our truth, right? So can you imagine, like, here I am living my life, you know, like, you know, experiencing, like, my truth, right? Like, just living like my truth, right? Living as I am.